Bowling is the most widely played sport in America and probably in the world. And there are very good reasons for its popularity. First, it's fun. That's the most important reason. Second, it's easy to learn. Perhaps you can't learn to be an expert in a few days, but you can learn to bowl well enough to enjoy it. Third, it's a sport that's within the physical capabilities of almost everyone. And fourth, it's inexpensive and convenient. There's a bowling establishment in almost every town in the country. The fundamentals of bowling are so simple that nobody needs any lessons to get the idea. You simply roll the ball down the lane and try to knock down all the pins you can. That's all there is to it. Without knowing any more than that, you can go out tonight and bowl and have a wonderful time. But someday you'll realize that there's a little bit more to bowling than this. To get the most out of it, you want to do the best you can. The more you bowl, the more you want to get a better and better score. And sometimes you reach a point where you seem to have gone as far as you can by yourself. You need a few expert pointers. I think I can give you a few tips which will help you increase your score. First, though, I'd like to stress something. To me, this is all important. Bowling is a sport, but even more important is the fact that it is a game. Unless you want to turn professional, you must realize that bowling is designed for fun. If you work at it too hard and turn it into a struggle instead of a sport, you're defeating the purpose of the game. Winning is exciting, of course, but it isn't everything. So all I'm going to try to do on this record is to show you how to get more fun out of bowling. Not necessarily to be the world's best bowler, but maybe one of the happiest. To start with, be comfortable. And as I've said before, and it can't be said too often, bowling is a game strictly for kicks. You only need one special item of clothing, a pair of shoes that's right for the lanes, and the rest of it simply dress comfortably and make sure you have a complete freedom of movement. Pants that are too tight or a skin-tight shirt may look like a million, but you'll bowl like 2 cents. Make sure your clothing is loose and comfortable so you can swing your arms and your legs without any difficulty. Don't dress to kill. Don't dress to make an impression. Just dress to enjoy yourself and to move gracefully without any restrictions. In the long run, you'll look even better this way. But before we go on, let me stress again my main theme. I love bowling, and I want you to love it too. It should be fun, so don't make it work. Improve your game, of course, but not at the expense of the enjoyment you get out of it. If you once kill the pleasure of a game, you'll never have fun with it anymore. Okay, let's get on with it. To enjoy a pleasant evening of bowling, you don't have to do anything except go to the bowling establishment of your choice. You don't have to bring anything along except yourself, dressed in loose-fitting clothes. You can rent a pair of shoes at the lanes and use the establishment's own balls. It is perhaps the only sport in the world that is as simple to participate in, accounting for its tremendous popularity. But if you bowl a few times, you'll notice something about the bowling balls. They vary in several ways. Some are lighter, some are heavier. Some have a 2-finger grip, but most of them have a 3-finger grip. The finger holes are wider in some than in others. And you'll probably learn quickly that you can get a better score with one ball than with another. That, of course, is because one ball feels more natural. The finger holes may fit your hand, the weight may suit your strength. One night you may bowl beautifully, the next night you may be a dud. But it may be because the second night you can't find the same ball you did so well with the night before. You've learned a vital lesson in bowling. The ball is a very important factor. There are several things you can do about it. First, if you bowl at the same establishment, you can simply try to find the same ball night after night. Memorize its number, and then, every time you go, look for it. And then you're in business. But of course, the better way is to have your own private made-to-order ball. It's a simple procedure and not expensive. Compared to the hours of pleasure you'll get from it, it will be just the weight you like, with the right grip and the most comfortable span between the finger holes. It will fit you like a glove, and you'll always bowl at your very best. Your next step will be a pair of bowling shoes. Bowling shoes have a leather sole for gliding on the left foot and a rubber tip on the other shoe for braking. This is a recipe for a right-handed person, of course. Lefties have to reverse the procedure. Now let's go down to the lanes and try to bowl. Bowling is the one sport where a robot would be a champion. There are no variables in bowling to change a constant situation. No problems of wind, rain, as in golf, or pebbles on the infield, as in baseball. The bowling pins are always in the same position. The lane is always the same length. The ball is always the same size. But it is the person who rolls the ball who may differ each time he bowls. That's why I say a robot would be the perfect bowler. His every delivery would be identical, and once he learned the way to roll a strike, he'd roll a strike every time. Try to become as close to a machine as you can. That's one of the secrets of bowling. Once you learn the way your ball behaves, once you discover the best spot to hit the pins, then you should try and duplicate that successful strike roll each time you step up to the foul line. It isn't easy, of course. We're all human, and it's almost impossible for the human machine to make the same gesture time after time. But we must try to get as close as possible to machine-like precision. Fortunately, there are some clues that we can use, and the first and possibly the most important is the stance you assume before you deliver your ball. If you stand one way one time, another way another time, it stands to reason that the ball will not roll down the lane in exactly the same angle at exactly the same speed. Think of a baseball batter who deliberately varies his stance to hit to different fields. That's fine in baseball, but the problem in bowling is the opposite. We want to roll exactly the same way each time. Basic to that project is the stance, and so to begin with, learn to place yourself exactly at the same spot. There are 2 points with which you must concern yourself and where you stand. You must establish your relation to the center of the lane as well as determine the distance you are from the foul line. First, find the center of the lane. This is relatively simple, especially in establishments that are equipped with rangefinders. These are almost always built into the newer houses and consist of various shapes, such as circles and darts, built into the floors of the lanes. There are generally 2 sets of dots behind the foul line. One of the dots is bigger than the others. When you've found the biggest dot, you've found the center of the lane. This applies to right-handed bowlers. Lefties do just the opposite. From now on, I'm not going to specify right-handed or left-handed. I'll just do everything for right-handers and leave it to the good sense of the left-handers to reverse my suggestions. Your left foot, then, is in the center of the lane, directly in line with the headpin. That places you exactly where you should be, as far as the center of the lane is concerned. Now, the next step is how far back from the foul line you should be. This varies considerably depending on such factors as the delivery you use, the length of your legs, the size of your stride. But a safe rule is to stand with your back to the pins and pace off in a normal stride, 1 step for every step you use in delivering the ball. In other words, pace off 3 steps for a 3-step delivery, 4 steps for a 4-step delivery, 5 steps for a 5-step delivery. If your legs are longer than average, add another half step. If you take a particularly long stride, add still another half step. That should bring you to the correct spot. Turn around and see where you are. For you, that should be home base. You should start every delivery from right there and no place else. Now pick up the ball and stand on your delivery spot. Hold the ball naturally. Hold it with your left hand under it, the right hand getting accustomed to its finger grip. Most bowlers generally stand almost straight, cradling the ball about their waist or perhaps a shade above the waist. There are some who crouch. If that position feels normal and comfortable to you, by all means crouch. What comes natural to you is always best for you. The next problem is to blot out all outside noises, every distraction that may cause you to alter your normal delivery. That can be difficult because a bowling establishment is no soundproof vacuum. But to achieve that machine-like perfection we want, the idea is to ignore as much of the outside noise as possible and concentrate on the job at hand. Maybe you can take a tip here from the top pro basketball players. Did you ever notice when they're shooting a foul that they generally assume their stance in the foul line and then take a deep breath? That seems to relax them. Try doing the same. That moment of breathing and relaxing can be a big help to you. It gives your body a chance to untense, and it gives your mind a chance to become focused on its duty, which is to guide your body through the delivery of the ball. Don't let anybody rush you. Stand there a moment, take that deep breath. Fix your eyes on your target, and then when you are ready and not before, go into your delivery. The stance is a vital first step in the art of bowling. Don't ignore it. There are 4 basic types of balls you can roll: the straight ball, the hook, the curve, and the backup, which is generally a reverse hook. Most people roll a ball straight normally and naturally. There are a few people who roll a hook without even knowing it. It comes naturally to them. And an even smaller percentage roll a natural curve. But the vast majority roll a ball as straight as string. And unless you do a great deal of bowling, there's no percentage in trying to change. A straight ball is perfectly fine, although there is no doubt that in the long run a hook or a curve will hit the pins at a little better angle to get strikes. Almost every professional bowler has a hook or curve, but unless you plan to be an every-night bowler or a pro, it isn't really that important. You can have all the fun in the world bowling a ball that is perfectly straight, and you can probably increase your control of it until you are consistently averaging between 130 and 150. If after you've reached that point you feel the urge to up your average, then you might try mastering the hook or curve. All the various breaking rolls, hook, curve, and backup are achieved through a simple twist of the wrist. To start with, how do you hold the ball for a straight delivery? Pick up the ball naturally and roll it. You'll notice that your thumb is directly in front, pointing right at the pins. Let's call it 12 o'clock, as they used to spot things in the Air Force. Your thumb for a straight ball is pointed at the spot where 12 o'clock would be, if the clock face were on the floor of the lane. And as you deliver the ball, the thumb remains in that position. Your wrist is always straight, and there's no deviation from that all the way through your delivery. All right, now you want to put a little hook on the ball. This type of ball rolls straight down the lane about halfway and then hooks to the left. To start throwing a hook, first hold the ball exactly as you do for the straight ball. Now turn it a bit so the thumb is at 10 o'clock instead of 12, and deliver it that way. No further wrist twisting is necessary. It's just that simple bit of business of where the thumb is pointing that gives the ball that little break. In the section of this record on delivery and aiming, I give pointers on how to aim a hook, but here I'm just talking about how to roll one. Once you've thrown a hook for a while, you'll learn how to control it, but at first you may be discouraged. The ball will seem to do tricks. Sometimes you'll expect it to break and it won't, and you'll be lucky to knock down 3 or 4 pins. Another time it will do just what you want, break right into that 1-3 pocket and score a clean strike. And the next time it'll break too sharply, cut in front of the pins, and you'll have a complete miss. These strange maneuvers are, of course, a result of your throwing it a little bit differently each time. You'll have to learn to keep that thumb at exactly the same angle time after time. That just takes a little practice, however, and you'll soon have that problem licked. Want to try a curve? This one travels in an arc from the moment of delivery until it makes contact with the pins. It's a flashy delivery and looks good to the people watching. And when it works perfectly, it does a good job of knocking the pins down. However, it is even more difficult to control than the hook because of the arc it travels. The first few times you try it, your ball will be all over the lane, in the right one time, and perfectly on target another, in the left the next. But if you want to try it, go ahead. Simply turn the ball a bit more and put the thumb at 9 o'clock instead of 10 for the hook or 12 for the straight ball. You have in effect turned your wrist a quarter turn from the straightforward position you used to roll a straight ball. Then when you release the curve ball, you should give it a little lift with your fingers, just as you let go. This gives it the spin needed to travel in that arc. The last of the 4 deliveries is the backup, which is a reverse hook. It travels straight for a time, then bends to the right. I know of no one who uses the backup consistently, but once in a while it can be helpful in picking up spares on the extreme right side of the lane. It is thrown by putting the thumb at 1 o'clock. In other words, you're twisting your wrist the opposite direction from the way you rolled the hook or curve. Theoretically, you could twist your wrist even more in that direction, say all the way to 3 o'clock, and get a reverse curve, but don't try that on the lanes. It would be so difficult to control and too dangerous to life and limb. There remains one other problem about the type of ball you roll, and that is the speed at which it goes down the lane. Now, some speed is necessary. A strike is caused by the pins flying around and knocking other pins down. If the ball is too slow, That flying action just won't happen. So you must put a little something on the ball. But don't get the idea that the faster you roll the ball, the more strikes you will get automatically. You quickly reach a point of diminishing returns on this. If you are consciously attempting to roll the fastest ball possible, you will be sacrificing something else: aim, coordination, or delivery. And all that speed isn't necessary. The ball must roll down the lane at a fairly good clip to score a strike, but supersonic speeds are not going to knock down more pins than 10. Here again, I'd like to stress the importance of naturalness. One key to good bowling is to do what comes naturally. If you have a nice delivery and the ball naturally moves at a nice speed, don't monkey around with it. There's no profit in trying to increase your speed just to compete with some joker on the next lane. Do the natural thing and let the speed take care of itself. We come now to the actual delivery of the ball. To my way of thinking, the four most graceful moments in all of the sports are a fine high diver in action, a great batter swinging at a fast ball, a top golfer driving from a tee, and a picture bowler in action. As we have seen, a good delivery is based on a good stance and on starting your delivery from the right spot on the lane. If you start from too far back as you deliver, you'll realize that you are too far back, and you will be taking extra long strides, which will throw your delivery off. Or the reverse of that. If you are not far enough back from the foul line, you'll find yourself cutting down on your stride, and again your delivery will be off. We will start with a four-step delivery, as this is what most people use naturally, and it offers the best opportunity for a simple and natural delivery. Take 4 steps back from the foul line and add a half a step if you have long legs and another half a step if you take a particularly long stride. Turn around, now you're ready to go. You start with your right foot, take an average stride. At the same time, let your left hand fall away from the ball. From now on, ignore your left arm. It will take care of itself. With your right arm, push the ball away in front of you. The right arm is almost parallel with the right leg as you take that first step. You can try this at home as you listen to this record. Use a book instead of the ball. Push it away in front of you as you take step 1. Now for the second step. Just as happens when you walk down the street normally. Your right arm goes back as your left leg goes forward. There's nothing mysterious to a bowling delivery, only here you've got a ball in your hand. You'll probably find yourself beginning to crouch a bit during this step, and you begin a backswing with your right arm. Before we get any further, a word about the backswing. The purpose of this is to give the ball sufficient momentum to knock the pins down. Your arm action is something like that of a clock pendulum. It swings back, then forward. Some bowlers figure the loftier the backswing, the more speed. That may be true, but speed isn't everything, and anyhow, a great broad backswing will throw your timing and your aim off. A timid little backswing won't give you enough speed. The ideal backswing brings the ball up to just about the level of your shoulders. If you find yourself not getting up that high, try starting out by holding the ball a bit higher during your stance and pushing it away a bit longer on the first step. This naturally tends to increase the pendulum action of your arm. For the reverse, a backswing that is too high, try holding the ball a bit lower and cutting down on the length of the push-away on step 1. This should shorten the pendulum action and lower the height of the backswing. Okay, back to where we were, on step 2. The right arm is swinging back. You're starting to crouch. Now, take your third step. Forward with your right foot. Your backswing is at its peak, and you start to come down with the arm. And now the moment of truth, the fourth step. You glide forward on your left foot. The right arm comes down, and if everything works out as planned, you should be releasing the ball just about at the foul line, with your left foot stopping comfortably short of that line. Okay, shall we give it a try at home? Roll back the rug, or find a clear spot about 12 feet long or so. Take your stance. Now, step 1, push away. Step 2, start your backswing. Step 3, start your right arm forward. Step 4, glide and release. All through the delivery, your eyes should be in only one place, and that's focused constantly on the target. If you are aiming at the pins, your head is up, your eyes straight ahead. If you are aiming at a rangefinder spot on the lane floor, your head is lower and your eyes riveted on that spot. In either case, the point is to keep the head still, the eyes glued to the target. There are two other possible deliveries, the 3-step and the 5-step. The first puts much more strain on the arm and is not recommended for that reason. However, some beginners seem to feel more comfortable closer to the foul line, and if you're one of them and seem to be able to manage the strain of your arm, try the 3-step approach. You start with your left foot, pushing away as you go. On the second step, you take your entire backswing, which is why this strains the arm more than the 4-step delivery, where the backswing is spread over 2 steps. So step 2 of the 3-step delivery finds you stepping forward with the right foot and swinging the right arm back and starting forward again. The third step, like the fourth, in the 4-step delivery is the glide and release step. The 5-step delivery is simply the 4th step with an extra added little step with the left foot first. Some people just seem to feel more comfortable starting with the left foot, so the 5-step delivery was invented for them. You start with a little step with the left foot and then go into the normal 4-step delivery. It's just a question of which one feels more natural to your limbs. By all means, try all of them, both at home and at the lanes. But don't switch just for the sake of switching. The paramount issue is your comfort when you're delivering. If you're happy the way you are, don't change. Only experiment if you don't feel comfortable. There are 3 more points to consider about how you deliver your ball. First, you have to turn it loose, and then follow through. That seems to be so natural and normal, yet so many bowlers ignore this very important motion. Your arm, don't forget, is acting like a pendulum, moving back and then forward in one sweeping movement. If you stop the swing as soon as you let the ball go, you aren't getting the most out of your delivery. Let that arm swing forward and up. Don't force it, but just do what comes naturally. Some people swing the arm in front of them as well as forward. That's fine. Some swing it away from them. That too is perfectly okay, as long as the ball is released before you twist your arm that way. In short, as long as you follow through, it doesn't matter how much or in what direction. But don't neglect it. This is one thing you can practice at home, perhaps better than at a bowling establishment. Arrange a practice delivery spot that will let you finish up next to a floor-length mirror. Then go into your delivery and follow through normally. Now look in the mirror and see where your arm is. If you've stopped your arm movement short, near the floor somewhere, you need help. One way to increase your follow-through is by exaggerating the motion. For a while, think about the follow-through and consciously go through the motions. Wind up, if you feel like it, in a big gesture like you are the Statue of Liberty or waving goodbye to a short friend on a tall boat. If you keep doing this for a while, eventually your arm will get the idea, and pretty soon you can stop thinking about it. There remains only the problem of aiming. By now, I'm sure everyone knows that the ideal spot to make contact with the pins is in the pocket between the 1 and 3 pin. If you bowl a straight ball, you can simply aim for that spot and fire away. Or with a rangefinder, line your sights up with a combination of dots and darts on the lanes that leads to the pocket, and aim to follow that imaginary line. A hook or a curve ball requires a different target. You must bowl with a hook or a curve for quite a while before you are sure what your ball does and how it will behave. Then you must aim for a spot just right so that your ball will wind up in the 1-3 pocket. That aiming spot is different for everyone. For many hook throwers, it is the 6 pin, the one immediately behind and to the right of the 3 pin. But there's no point here in my telling you to aim at the 6 pin or the rangefinders, which will bring you to the 6 pin because your hook may break differently. Similarly, a curveball roller often aims at a spot on the channel halfway down the lane, or the rangefinders leading to that spot. But your curve may be more sweeping, and you'll need an entirely different target. That's something you'll have to decide for yourself, generally after hours of frustrating trial and error. But the key to perfection is to deliver as much as possible in the same way and always aim at the same target. There is no such thing as par in bowling as there is in golf. But it has often been suggested that certain lanes are harder to achieve a good score on, just as certain golf courses are harder than other golf courses. The difference isn't in anything tangible, like longer fairways or more difficult approaches to the green, or bigger and better sand traps. The difference is in the surface of the lane itself. Some lanes are what we call fast, others are known as slow. And the same ball delivered with the same motion will behave differently on these different lane surfaces. The thing to do first, when you are bowling in a strange house, bowl 3 or 4 practice balls. They'll let you do this. During these tests, bowl in your normal way. Normal target, normal delivery. See where the ball goes. Suppose you find the ball hooking too soon, sweeping in too soon and hitting the head pin more often than the pocket. This type of lane is called fast. You can counteract the action of a fast lane like this in one of 2 ways. First, you can put a bit more speed on the ball and otherwise use your normal delivery. This often is all that's needed. If you'd rather not attempt this additional speed, try what we call ballying the delivery. That means to change the aim just a bit to the right so that the fast action of the hook will be counterbalanced and the ball should then come up a little bit on the pins and hit the pocket. This will take a little practice, of course, but you should be able to master it by the 3rd or 4th frame. It just means aiming a bit to the right, either on the pins as they stand or on the rangefinders. The reverse of this is a slow lane. You'll notice when you deliver your practice rolls that your hook hardly hooks. The ball hits closer to the 3-pin than the 1-pin, time after time. Okay, now that you've identified the slow lane, how should you deal with it? You could slow down your delivery, but this is very difficult to do. It's best not to attempt this. The accepted way of tackling a slow lane is to change your stance. Move about 3 inches to the right instead of centering yourself on the lane. And as an added help, move your aim a trifle to the left, say at the headpin itself, or the rangefinders pointing to the headpin. These 2 alterations should prove equal compensation for the average slow lane, and you'll soon be connecting with the pocket again. Once in a while, you'll find certain lanes where the ball acts differently at the end of the night from how it acted at the beginning. That's because the polish on the lane is being worn off. The result is that towards the end of the evening, the lane is no longer as slick and smooth as it should be. Any hook you throw will be magnified by this condition as the lane assumes the characteristics which we call fast. It's a good idea then, if you find after you've bowled a game or 2 that your hook is cutting in too sharply, to think about this. And if it happens several times, begin compensating as you would for a fast lane. Either increase your speed or move your aim just a bit to the right. That should do the trick. Converting a split into a spare is how you separate the men from the boys, and also the women from the girls. Scoring a spare instead of just leaving a few pins standing can mean 20 to 30 points to your game. So you see that the science of knocking down those odd pins is a fundamental part of the game. The average leave is fairly simple. Generally, there will be 1 pin standing or 2 or 3 in a nice convenient group. Sometimes you'll get a railroad or split, as it's commonly called, pins left standing that are widely separated. These weirdos can be converted, but of course they are much tougher. Let's first consider the simpler leaves. Look at the diagram on the jacket, or if you've lost the jacket, remember that the pins are all numbered. The head pin is number 1. The second row consists of the 2 and 3 pin, reading from left to right. In the third row are pins 4, 5, and 6, and bringing up the rear are numbers 7, 8, 9, and 10. The most frequently encountered leaves are clusters, like the 1, 2, and 5, the 4, 7, and 8, the 2, 4, and 7, and similar combinations. You'll note that these groupings are all made up of pins that are touching. When confronted with one of these common leaves, pick out the spot that's in the center of the group and aim right there. In many combinations, you can use the same delivery and aim at the same target as you use for your first delivery, your strike ball. The 1, 2, 5 leave, for example, can be taken care of with a strike. So can the 2, 4, and 8. For other leaves, you will have to change your aiming point. If the spares are bunched on the left side of the lane, like the 4 and 7 pins, move your target a bit to the left. Either do this by picking the pins themselves, or if you're operating on a rangefinder, pick a dart a bit to the left of your strike ball and fire away. Likewise, Leaves that are concentrated on the right side of the lane, say the 6, 9, 10, should be attacked by aiming to the right of your strike ball path. Again, as your target, use either the pins themselves or a rangefinder target that applies to the target you want. One other simple rule for spares: give yourself all the lane room you can. What I mean is that you should move your stance to the right to convert spares in the left side of the lane, and move to the left for spares on the right side of the lane. In this way, you'll have more room to work and a better chance to knock the pins down. These rules apply to all leaves you may encounter. Aim to knock them down and give yourself as much lane room as possible. But sometimes the leaves are not bunched, and then they become splits. Now, no matter what you read in the bowling books or see in the movies, the really tough splits like the 7-10 and even the 4-10 or 6-7 are seldom converted, even by the top pro bowlers. They require such a perfect ball that they are almost impossible, but don't give up. Try them by all means. The accepted method is to clip the first pin on the edge so that it will fly and knock the other one down. It sounds simple, and when it works, it's a beautiful sight to behold. Only trouble is, it very seldom works, like the 6-7. Since the 6 is the one you want to clip, and the 6 is the right-hand pin, you stand at the left-hand end of the lane, and you aim so as to slice that pin on its right side edge. In theory, this will send the pin sailing across the lane, and it should knock down the 7 pin. If it does, give yourself a medal. Most of us professional bowlers find it very difficult to shoot these splits. We would much rather take one pin for sure, especially in league play. Actually, the only time we try to convert a real hard split would be either on open bowling or once in a while on a television series. Some bowlers are strike happy. If they get a strike, they're delighted. If they don't, they're miserable, and they're only half-hearted about their attempts to convert their leaves. They are being very foolish. Spares are much more frequently encountered than strikes. Think how rare a 300 game is. So they deserve your serious attention. Remember only the 2 basic rules. Give yourself all the lane room you can and change your aim accordingly, and you'll get many more spares than you miss. Bowling is the same for women as for men. There's no such thing as woman's par as there is in golf, or woman's rules as in basketball. In bowling, women sometimes use a little lighter ball, but they're shooting at the same pins, rolling the ball the same distance, and trying for the same high score as men. Since one key to good bowling success is a graceful, rhythmic delivery, women really have a head start over men. By nature, the girls have a better sense of rhythm and have an innate grace that should be very helpful. They aren't as strong physically as men, but strength really is a secondary consideration in bowling. You only need sufficient muscle power to pick up the ball and roll it, and as noted earlier in this record, it isn't necessary to roll the ball with a great deal of power to get the strikes. You need some power, but no more than the average female possesses. So basically, women should be able to bowl every bit as well as men, and yet somehow they don't. With some notable exceptions, women don't seem to reach the averages that men do. I think the reason for this is that women are afraid of competitive sports by and large. They think they will be at a disadvantage because they aren't as physically powerful as men, and this puts them at a psychological disadvantage to start with. I've seen many women bowl, and most of them are timid and shy. They pick up the ball as though it were a bomb all set to explode, and they drop it rather than roll it. If women conquered this timidity, they could be beautiful bowlers. And so I'd like to suggest to all you girls who are bowling, or who are thinking about taking it up, that the first thing you realize is that bowling is well within your physical ability. Pick up the ball as though it were a head of lettuce. Go into your delivery as though it were the latest cha-cha-cha step. You can bowl as well as you can do anything else. Naturally, since you aren't as strong as the average man, use a lighter ball. Find one that feels comfortable, that you can pick up and deliver without strain. Use the 4-step delivery if possible, since it doesn't put as much strain on your arm as the 3-step and doesn't require as much learning as the 5-step. Go back to the section on this record on the delivery and learn the 4-step delivery, which I described there. A few other points for women. With a lighter ball, the chances of making a strike are less than with a heavy ball, but that shouldn't kill your fun by any means. There are two ways to counteract that problem. Some women seem to have the ability to throw a hook, and a hook increases your chances of making a strike. You should try to teach yourself a hook, not until you're well along, of course, but eventually. I described the hook on this record in the section on the type of balls. The other thing to do is to concentrate on your aim and try to get all the spares you can. Remember, you can get a respectable score in bowling without ever making a strike, if you make enough spares. I'd also like to recommend that you girls who are just starting to bowl listen to the advice I have for beginners on the section of this record for beginners. That advice applies to beginners of both sexes, and I think it could be of genuine help to you as you start your bowling career. Bowling is a sport that appeals to all ages, from the youngest to the oldest. There's no age limit to its attraction. By all means, let the children bowl. It is a perfect exercise, a good, healthy release for their energies, and a fine way for them to increase coordination. Then, too, it keeps them off the streets, if that's a problem where you live. However, few words of caution are necessary. There is a tendency nowadays to start them too young. 6- and 7-year-olds may be able to pick up the very lightest bowling balls, and they may have a vague idea of the point of the game. But they are still entirely too young to be turned loose at a bowling establishment. For one thing, they really don't have the strength they need yet. For another, at that age, they need a more balanced exercise program. It is much better to wait a little longer before you let them bowl as a steady diet. A few games around that age, of course, will do no harm, and it might be a good idea to get the child interested in this fine sport. But I don't advise letting a child bowl until he can handle the ball without strain. The first few times you take a child to a bowling establishment, keep him or her closely supervised. Some lanes have instructors. Others have special classes for children. Both these are ideal ways of starting a youngster. If the establishment you bowl at has neither of these, take the child yourself. Let him bowl with you for a starter. Naturally, make very sure that the ball he uses first is light enough for him to handle. Start with the lightest you can find, and only gradually let the child work up to the heavier ones. By the time he's a teenager, he should be able to handle a standard weight ball. The first few times, let him stand right at the foul line and bowl from there. But very quickly teach him the right form so he learns the correct methods as early as possible. Again, a teacher or a class would be best for this purpose. But if neither is available, teach him yourself. If your bowling style is unorthodox, try getting him to copy some other bowler who does things the accepted way. In the long run, this is better than teaching him a pattern which may be fine for you, but would be awkward for someone else. On his first day at the establishment, you don't even need to play a real game. Maybe he'd rather just watch. Perhaps he's a bit embarrassed by his own lack of skill. That's natural with children. Let him watch for a night or two. Then he'll probably come to you and ask if he can try it. Then, of course, let him roll a ball or two. The next step is a game. Keep giving him hints, and don't worry if he gets tired and quits in mid-game. Don't deliberately throw the game to him, but do your best and show him how to do his best. Many families enjoy bowling together. It's the one sport where the whole family can participate, and if your children get off on the right bowling foot, it's a great way for a family to have a wonderful night together. For beginners, one thing you have to learn right away is how to pick up a bowling ball. It seems to me that 9 out of 10 people on their first time at a bowling establishment wind up by getting their fingers banged up. When you're picking a ball off the rack, keep your hands on the side of the ball, away from the balls next to it. If you don't, as another ball rolls up on the rack and slams into the ones already there, your fingers are liable to be in the middle of a bowling ball sandwich. That's only a small thing, of course, but it can really make you very unhappy if you get your fingers pinched. The first impressions can be strong, so such a happening could sour you on bowling for a long time. That's about the only chance you ever have of getting hurt while bowling. It's probably the safest sport known to man or beast, except, perhaps, professional wrestling. As far as your own bowling is concerned, there isn't really much to tell. If you've listened to the rest of this record, you've heard me say in several places that the thing to strive for is comfort and naturalness. dress comfortably, roll the ball naturally. At first, just to get the hang of the thing, it might be sensible to stand right at the foul line and roll the ball from there. Once you understand how the ball behaves, you can gradually move back until you are in the correct position for one of the standard deliveries. Another thing to do, in bowling as in every other sport, is to be a good watcher. Pick out a bowler who seems to be graceful and well coordinated. Watch the way he does it, the way he stands, the way he holds the ball, how he moves, how he follows through. Try to imitate his style. Imitation, remember, is the sincerest form of flattery. During all this time, you will undoubtedly be getting lots of free advice. This is good, of course, because bowlers are generally a friendly, helpful group, and they are trying to be kind. The only trouble is that much of the advice will be contradictory. You'll hear one man tell you to crouch lower, and another will tell you to stand up straight. Somebody will say that your backswing is too big, and somebody else will advise you to make it bigger. And so it will go. The thing to do, of course, is to listen only to the one person, but be sure he's a bowler who knows what he's talking about. It might be a good idea at first to ask one particular bowler to watch you and tell you what you're doing wrong. And from then on, do just what that one person tells you to do, no matter what conflicting opinions you'll get from the other kibitzers. And practice, practice, practice. The more you bowl, the better you'll be. That's true of every sport, and certainly true of bowling. If you only bowl once a month, you'll have fun, but you'll never be a good bowler. It takes several games a week over a period of months before a beginner can become a reasonably good bowler. You may not want to do any more than have fun. And as I've said earlier, that's easy. But for those who want to get a higher and higher average, you must practice and polish your style, work on your delivery, and perfect your aim. That's all there is to it. And now you're on your own. So go out and have a ball. A bowling ball, of course.